Hello, welcome to episode 2.
Here's our blanket, excellent.
An asymmetrical twist. Dropping and sinking.
Notice how
So just notice. Joining us for the second episode of next week. Namaste. Hello and welcome to episode 34 of Namaste Yoga. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I love sharing this yoga with you each week, and I do appreciate you all tuning in each week. I want to say a special thanks to one of the people who donated to Namaste Yoga this week. A special hello and thank you to Kathy Finn. Kathy Finn has done work with me for a long time on a long distance basis, and I just really appreciate her donation, and I'm sure glad that she's enjoying Namaste Yoga. So thank you, Kathy. And for any of you that wanted to donate, you can just go to melissawest.com, and right on the homepage, it's right there. You can click on the donate link there. And the donations really allow us to keep the quality of the podcast really high, as well as improve the quality. There are some technical things that we'd like to do that are going to cost a significant amount of money to invest in to be able to bring it to you at a higher level. So those really help us with our productions costs. So thank you so much from all of you that donate to Namaste Yoga. So today we have my friend Lurleen Anderson with us from organizeyourworld.ca. Great to have you back, Lurleen. She's becoming a regular. And we're continuing our series of classes. This is the second in the series of 10 classes on the Yamas and the Niyamas, according to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. They're kind of like the 10 Commandments in the Christian Bible. They're the ethical principles by which we can live our lives, choose to live our lives. And we started last week with episode 33 on ahimsa, and I do encourage you, if you haven't already done that class, to go back and have a look at it. This class can stand alone, but it would be great for you to have a chance to experience all the yamas. So this week we're working with the second yama, the second ethical principle, Satya, which is truthfulness. So go ahead and rest back. Truthfulness, sincerity, integrity, all those things describe Satya. And I'm going to start with a little kind of skit. I want you to imagine two women at a cocktail party, and in fact it's called When They Revolutionized Cocktail Parties. And this little dialogue between two people, I think it's just such a great representation of Satya, of truthfulness, and really getting to the core of truth. So the first woman says, "Hello, what are you afraid of?" And the second woman says, "Death." "Me too." "When you hear a Mahler symphony?" "No, when I wake up at night." "Me too." "Nice meeting you." "Same here." And I think this is just such a great example of an interaction where Satya is present, where the thoughts, the words, really line up with each other in integrity. So, how many times do we have conversations with other people where, "Oh, how are you doing?" "Oh, I'm great." And, really, you're not great. So I just thought that was a great example of Satya. Because Satya really occurs when our thoughts and our words and our actions are consistent with one another. So I want to begin with another poem that you also probably have heard before. It's a very famous poem by Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. "This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So when we practice Satya, it's like this poem. We meet all the visitors at the door. We meet the truth of our body, the truth of our thoughts, our emotions, our spirit, and we invite it all in. We're not trying to close the door on anything or pretend something's not happening or, closing the door on anything. I think is just such a great way to describe it. Satya is second to ahimsa, so it's really important that it's practiced in alignment with nonviolence and compassion and kindness. When we do that, then practicing the remaining yamas and niyamas becomes a whole lot easier. Nichala Joy Devi describes Satya as dedicated to truth and integrity. Our thoughts, words, and actions gain the power to manifest. So as you rest back here, I want you to tune into your breath right now and start to notice the truth of your breath. Not how you want your breath to be, but how the breath actually is in this moment. Noticing the places where it flows freely, and also noticing and bringing awareness to places where there might be more tension or holding. And then tune into your body and start to become aware of the truth of your body right now. Noticing what parts are knocking at the door. Can you open the door and welcome them and greet them at the door laughing? So, I think there's sort of two ends, and we'll talk about this a lot in our practice today, the kind of two ends of the spectrum of avoiding truth in our bodies. One is that there are those parts in our bodies that call our attention a lot. And sometimes we try to pretend they're not happening. So that's not a good example of practicing Satya. When we practice Satya, then we are aware of the parts in our bodies that are calling for our attention. And we greet them at the door, invite them in, and treat them like a guest. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I think there's sort of, being at a distance from Satya is that sometimes we can get too identified with our stories. So, for example, you lie down and you start to feel your body, and you know what you're going to feel before you lie down. So you go into story before you've actually even checked in. So, for example, maybe your neck always hurts. So you expect that to happen. You lie down and that's the script. Well, my neck always hurts, so it hurts. And then it's more of an attachment to story than the truth of the moment. It may be that the neck hurts in the moment, but what's it like to come at it freshly and notice what's really happening in the moment in the body? And then tune into your thoughts. And our thoughts, wow, there's that incessant knocking at the door with the thoughts. And we were talking about this in meditation this week, about what happens if you actually open the door and listen to what they have to say for a while, that maybe the knocking would stop a bit. So what's it like to give a little bit of spaciousness to the voices, to the words, to the thoughts, to the chatter in the mind, and notice what's happening? And then tuning into the emotions, noticing how you're feeling today. And isn't this so true of our emotions? There's certain guests that we love to invite into our house. Laughter and joy. And then there are those emotions that we think, wow, maybe you could just stay outside the door. I don't really want to honestly acknowledge that I'm having that emotion. So I know one that's hard for me sometimes when if I lie down or wherever I am in my life to notice anger. It's like, wow, who's that? What's that emotion? But what would it be like to invite it in and treat it like a guest and meet it honorably? Both the so-called positive emotions and the so-called negative emotions. And just to be really honest about what's present right now for you. And then tune into that part of you that's bigger than all that. Bigger than your body, than your mind, your emotions, and your breath. To the part that is already love and light, that has nowhere to go and nowhere to be. It's already arrived. Your spirit. And try to sense the truth of that. The truth of that part of you. And then bringing all of that in, your body, your mind, your emotions, your breath, and your spirit. And take a moment to set an intention around how you would like to cultivate Satya in your practice today. How are you going to bring truth and integrity and honesty to your practice today? And then when you're ready, you can start to gently stretch out. And wiggle and stretch. And I forgot to tell you this, but we're going to use straps today. So if you have a strap at home, that's great. If you don't have a yoga strap, then you can just grab a necktie, or you can grab a sash from your the belt from your bathrobe too. Works really great. But when I was using a scarf that I wear the other day as a prop, it was great. Worked really well. Yeah. Okay, so let's lie back, continue to lie back. There's your strap, my dear. And we're going to take the strap and place it around your right foot and draw the right leg in. So we're going to wake up the legs a little bit with supta padangusthasana. And the reason why I wanted to check in with this pose is that, I see, and this is kind of, again, this sort of broad spectrum of being far away from truth on either end. And so if we're looking at it in a kind of polarized way, what I do is I watch students who take it like way beyond the edge and they're just going nuts, and that's not very honest practice. And then on the other end of that spectrum, I see students who are actually never really willing to come to a place where there's any intensity too. So just note where you land on that spectrum and try and find that sweet spot, that place where you're honestly engaged by the pose. And then we're going to open that leg out to the side. I'm going to switch around so that we can both open our legs. Okay, so we'll open that right leg out to the side, and you're going to really sink the left hip into the ground. Okay, and then bring that leg back center, and we'll bring it straight up again. And then we're going to start to cross the leg over the body just a little bit, really keeping the space along the back of the leg nice and open, let the shoulders drop. And this one, it doesn't take very much to get to that intense place. But also the truth about this pose is that it is intense. So if it's not feeling intense, you're probably not honestly there yet. So just check in on that. And then you can bring that leg back center. We'll slowly lower it down. And then I want you to notice and honestly assess the effect of that. Wow. My right leg is like 4 inches longer than my left. So I was in this kind of interesting conversation this week with another yoga teacher and another yoga student. And the student said to the teacher, when am I ever going to see results from my yoga? And I thought, wow, like so much missed awareness around the truth of what's really happening in her body when she does yoga. So, I think this is, when we do one side and the other side, this is such a great place to reflect and be like, wow, you know what? Something has really honestly just happened here by doing that leg up pose. Yeah, so that's the truth, right? May not be the intention behind why she's practicing, but there are things happening, right? Okay, so let's hook up the other foot. Opening up the space in the back of the leg, the second leg. So here, this is where it's really important to blend ahimsa with Satya, compassion and kindness with truthfulness. So the honest truth here is that this leg is different than the first leg, right? And what automatically happens in our human way is that we're more attached to one version than the other. So I wonder what it would be like for you today to just be present with what is happening in a really kind and compassionate way, noticing the differences without judgment and criticism. And honoring your body and the truth of where your body can come in the pose. Okay, then we're going to open the leg out to the side. So you don't have much room there, but it's kind of nice to use the wall, isn't it? Props can be great. I love when, this is actually where I practice yoga every day here. This is our living room space, and I practice right here. And normally there's a couch right here, and I love using that couch to rest my leg on. Props are great. I was thinking about how comfortable I am teaching today, and it probably has something to do with doing it in my home, right? Okay, and then come back center. And then we'll cross the leg over the body, keep the back of the pelvis on the ground, keep the leg drawing in. You'll feel that along the whole outside of the leg. So just noticing again whether you're practicing in a way that you push yourself past all the edges, or if you're not coming to an intense enough place, or can you sit somewhere in the middle in the truth of being at an edge that is appropriate for you. release that leg down and check in and feel that, beautiful symmetry of the two sides. Okay, so you can just place your straps off to the side or down beside you, and you're going to bend both knees and place both. See how organized Lurleen is? She wanted to roll herself all night. See, that's how organized she is. She's great at what she does. Me, I just tossed it. Okay, so bend the knees, feet flat on the floor. We're going to cross the right leg over the left leg and open up that right knee. Good. And then you can draw the left leg in. You reach your right hand through that keyhole, and you can hold on the hamstring or the shin. And this is another really great pose to be honest about where your edge is. So, we want the shoulders and the back body to be really grounded. So that might mean that holding onto the hamstring is best for you. If this all has to lift and everything to come up to the shin, it's not very an honest edge. That's an example of really pushing yourself past your edge. So just notice which one works best for you and honor that. Use your ahimsa, your non-violence in your body. And then you can slowly lower that leg down. We'll uncross the right leg, crossing the left leg over the right, opening up that left knee. And drawing the right leg in and approaching the second side, with honesty. So holding on the right hamstring or the shin and being where you are on this side. And as you hold this pose, just reflecting back on the intention that you set at the beginning of the practice, and check in with how you're doing with cultivating Satya in your practice today. And then slowly release that down. And you're going to roll over onto your stomach. We're going to do a version of half lotus to strengthen the back in preparation for some standing postures we're going to do today. Okay. So you're going to rest your forehead on the ground and your hands down by the side of your body. And what you'll do actually is roll your shoulders back and up in line with your back, and then lift your arms so they're in line with your shoulders now. Root down through the pubic bone, reach the sit bones down to behind the knees so the low back stays long. Breathe in and breathe out, drawing the navel back and up towards the spine. And then you're going to inhale, hover the head off the ground, and lift the sternum. So you're lifting the upper back, great. And then you can slowly lower down. And the second arm position, I'm going to give two options because, it might be at home like Lurleen, you probably might not have enough room for this. So one is like airplane arms out to the side, which you may or may not be able to do. The other is like robot arms. Maybe you can try the robot arms, Lurleen, at like a 90-degree angle. Yeah, and bring them right up so the elbows are in line with the shoulders. Great. And I'll move down a bit so you can see that. And then what you're going to do is roll those shoulders back and up. And you want the elbows and the forearms to be parallel to the ground. Yeah. Good. And if you have the room, you can do the arms out to the side. So we'll breathe out. Drop the navel, pelvic tilt. Breathe in. Breathe out and lift. So really strengthening the upper body. And great, to keep your chin tucked there, Lurleen. Yeah, great, so that it's just the upper back lifting. Strengthening, huh? Yeah, pardon? Okay, and then you can slowly lower down and push yourself up and bring your knees up underneath you. You can sit back in child's pose. And you might want to do child's pose with your hands down by your feet, yeah, especially after all that arm work. Okay, so you can slowly roll up, and we're going to do some lunging now to open up the front of the hips. So you can come up to standing on your knees, and we're gonna walk the right leg through. No, the left. The left. Let me tell you why. Okay, so you can lean forward into lunge pose, hands on either side of the feet. Or if it's more comfortable for you to be upright, do you want something under your knee? You're okay. Okay, so lean forward so you're getting a stretch to the front of the hip. You might need to take your foot forward a little bit more too. Yeah. Okay, so the reason why I've been liking to start lunge pose with the left leg is because it lengthens the hip and the ascending colon first. And it's great to do that before the descending colon, so that's why I like to open up the right side first over the left. I still haven't done a class on Namaste Yoga on digestion. I have to do that. Okay, so let's switch and lean back. And you can walk the other leg through. So lengthening the front of the left hip, the descending colon too. And this is great too, because even the pressure of the right leg gets the other side as well. So that's great for digestion. Okay, so you can step back and come to table position, hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Tuck the toes under the back, breathing in. Breathing out, piking those hips, coming back to down dog. And then you can walk your feet into your hands and come up to standing. Okay. Great. All right, so we're going to stand in Tadasana pose. And I think that Tadasana is a great pose that embodies Satya, truthfulness and integrity in a really embodied way. Because Satya, you know, there comes a time, and you can probably all think back in your lives of these times, these moments of truth, where you've had to stand up and speak your truth or stand up for the truth. So that's what it can be like standing in mountain pose. So why don't you spread the toes nice and wide, check the inner edges of the feet, making sure that they're parallel, and then think about lengthening the legs long out of the pelvis, and that'll help to root the legs down and strengthen them. You'll feel that strength of the mountain, strong and unmovable. And it's like that when you have to speak your truth, right? You need to come from this position of strength. And then roll your shoulders back and down. Just tucking the chin slightly, drawing the navel back. There's mountain pose. And while you stand in mountain pose, and you can do it with your eyes closed if you want, I'm going to read to you a story about the poses that we're going to do next. We're going to do the warrior poses today, Virabhadrasana. And Virabhadrasana came from Shiva. And I want to tell you the story about how the Virabhadrasana warrior came about. So this comes from a book called Downward Dogs and Warriors. It's by Zoe Newell, and actually we'll be having Zoe on the radio show very soon. So very much looking forward to that. And I thought I would share one of the stories from this book. It's called Wisdom Tales for the Modern Yogis. So this is the story of the warrior pose, Shiva as destroyer. So just notice what it's like to stand in mountain two for an extended period of time. Parvati was not Shiva's first wife. Shiva's first wife was Sati, the daughter of King Daksha. Daksha's job since the beginning of the world was to oversee and regulate rituals and see that they were done properly. Ancient beliefs hold that an improperly conducted ritual can adversely affect the kingdom, while one done according to correct procedures benefits everyone. If you plan to invoke divine powers, you had better know how to do it right. Sati's parents did not see Shiva until the day of the wedding. They had to take their daughter's word, so that they went with Sati's truth, right? Satya. They had to take her word that he was the love of her life and the Lord of the universe. At an Indian wedding, the groom arrives to the bride's house on horseback, accompanied by all his friends. Shiva arrived in his aspect of the lord of the burial grounds, with long matted hair, his body covered in ashes, wreathed in snakes, and accompanied by a troop of ghosts and demons, all reeking of marijuana. So Sati knew him well enough not to be deceived by appearances, but her poor parents were appalled and wanted to cancel the wedding. Finally, to please Sati, Shiva showed himself in his magnificent incarnation, radiantly handsome, garlanded with gold, dressed in silk, and accompanied by splendid, deferential courtiers. That's more like it, thought Daksha, and allowed the marriage to proceed, but he held a grudge. A short time later, Daksha sent invitations to everyone he knew, and even a few he didn't, to attend a splendid yagya at his court. A yagya is a religious ceremony, a sacrifice involving fire. It can go on for several days. A king's yagya is a very special occasion indeed. No invitation came for Shiva and Sati. Surely, said Sati with a sinking heart, he just forgot. Of course he means us to be there. Shiva was not so sure, or rather he was quite sure, but he tried not to upset his wife. Your father doesn't like me, he said, and he knows where we live. If he wanted us to be there, he'd have said so. You can go if you want, but I'm not going to make matters worse by crashing his party. I will, said Sati, and she set off with her woman for her father's house. It was clear she was not welcome. Daksha and his friends said insulting things about her husband, her wedding, her taste in men, and the remarks got worse as the evening wore on. The yagya was a mockery of itself, with the Lord of the universe excluded and insulted. Daksha was offering nothing of real value. He was simply flaunting his own wealth and power. The one to whom all sacrifice ultimately comes was not present. The Veda tells us that in a true sacrifice, God is the offering, the one who offers, the recipient, the flames, the fuel, the ritual. This was no sacrifice. Sati could not bear it. The flames roared. With one swift movement, she flung herself into the fire and was burned to ash, herself becoming the sacrifice. When Shiva heard what happened, he was overcome with grief and fury. His eyes stood out, his blood boiled, his hair stood on end. In an ecstasy of rage, he tore a hair from his own head and flung it to the ground. The next moment, where the hair had been, stood a warrior, the personification of Shiva's emotions, red-faced and grunting with the lust for vengeance. This was Virabhadra, the personification of righteous anger and the noble impulse to defend the innocent. The warrior Virabhadra saluted Shiva, then flew to King Daksha's palace, where he ripped and roared through the sacrifice, destroying everyone and everything in his path. He tore off Daksha's head. There's more to the story than this, but right now that's enough. As for Sati, Shiva was able to bring her back to life, and she was reborn as Parvati, this time with a father who supported Shiva and her love for him. And as for Daksha, Shiva forgave him and restored him to life, but he had to live with the head of a goat. So in warrior, we're going to see the warrior pose progress from efforts to highest power, moving with dynamic control into action. And you can start to open your eyes and move a little bit now. I think the warrior poses are about meeting our anger in an honest way. And anger can be such a great motivator. There's so many activists on our planet who have been motivated by the truth, by wanting to resolve some kind of truth. So you can think about Mad Mothers Against Drinking Driving, all the animal rights activists that do work on behalf of the abuse of animals on the planet. You can even think about women, mothers with children with autism who speak up and advocate for the truth of their children. So I think there can be great motivators in finding truth, in standing up for the truth, right? So let's stand towards the back of our mats, and we'll practice the warrior poses. First, by learning what our truth is, standing in our truth, and then moving into the world and creating action in the world in a way that's honest and truthful. Okay, so we're going to take a big step forward with the right foot. So you want that distance. We're going to do long stance warriors today. They're really powerful. So we want the distance between the two legs to be about the length of one of your legs. And you want your heel to line up with the arch of your back foot, which is on about a 45-degree angle. Then you can bend the front right knee. And this is really the most important part of this pose here, is that this knee stays out over the second and third toes. So when you look down, you should be able to see your big toe. You don't want it rolling in. So stay towards the outside edge of the foot. Keeping that knee there, you're going to pull the left hip back as much as you can, but not so much that it pulls the knee. So drawing the left hip back and the right hip forward, those hips will eventually square to the side. And then, like we did when you were lying on your back before, use your back muscles to lift the arms for warrior two, which creates a lot of strength, and to hold the arms, not holding up the arms with the shoulders. So you'll gaze over top of the right fingertips. So you'll notice here in this pose, you're very grounded in the center, in your truth, in the moment. And then the left hand is symbolic of the past, and of drawing all your wisdom and strength and experience from the past into the present moment. And then the right hand, and looking beyond it, is symbolic of the future and your vision for the future. And then you're going to turn your hips. You might want to turn the back foot in a little bit more even. So the hips are square to the front, and we'll keep the front knee bent, back leg straight, arms are going to float up. There's warrior one. And in warrior one, I think this is just such a great personification of that poem, This Being Human is a Guest House. Because here you are at the door, looking at what's really there, being really honest about what you're meeting. So you stand in your truth, and then your thoughts and your words and your actions are going to line up with that truth. Your thoughts and words are going to move into action here. So you're going to shift forward onto that front right leg. You can use the wall for balance too, Lurleen. And you're going to come up into warrior three, and I'm just going to move back, swim and shot. So you're balancing on that right leg, lengthening the left leg back and long. And this is the truth of your action in the world. And then come up slowly. So I've been watching my students in these poses all week and thinking about how, sometimes it's time for action and sometimes it's not. And I've been watching the students that are struggling in Warrior 3 and kind of thinking, if what happens on the mat is what is happening in life, maybe it's not always time for action, right? Maybe it's time to hang back in Warrior 2 or Warrior 1 and really assess more before we move into action. So just notice what it's like for you to move into that action of the Warrior 3. Okay, other side. Let's take a big step forward with the left foot. Good. Right. So sinking down through that front left hip, spinning the right hip back, the left hip forward. Shoulders are dropped down, using the strength of the back to lift the arms. Gazing over top of the left fingertip. So reflecting back on your intention again and just checking in with how it is to cultivate Satya in your practice today. Okay, and then we're going to spin the right hip forward, the left hip back, so now the hips are square to the front of the room. Wow, this side's really different in a kind of positive way. That's nice when that happens. Sinking that front left hip down and floating the arms up. There's Warrior 1. There you are, greeting those guests at the door, inviting them in, treating each guest honorably. Standing in your truth. Okay, and then shifting forward onto that front left foot. Just shift back a bit, or you can use the wall though to come into Warrior 3. And I was thinking about how Warrior 3 isn't often a pose that I practice on its own. It's only when I do the warrior poses. And I actually practiced it all by itself this morning. It was awesome. Okay. So apparently my right leg is more ready for action than my left leg. That's my truth today. Okay, so we thought about standing in our truth in the world and being peaceful warriors and spiritual activists in the world. And now we look at the expression of truth from a different way in the body. And the area of truth in the body is all around the neck, and it has to do with the way we communicate our truth in the world and also with how we receive truth. So the back of the neck has to do with how you receive things. And do you ever have a conversation where sometimes somebody says something and you think, oh, that just didn't land right? You feel that right in your back. Sometimes you get your back up a little bit because it's not a truth, right? You feel that in the back of the body. So we'll start there by stretching out the back of the neck. And actually, we're just going to pull your mat around to the back wall so that the whole thing lines up with the wall. Yeah, and then we can both use it. So you can sit on the edge of the mat. I might just talk you through it too. And put your hip right up against the wall. So if you have a wall, you can do that. Okay, so you can come right up close. Yeah. Okay, you go ahead and go up first, and then I'll come up after. So you're going to swing a little. Yeah, you're going to bring your legs up the wall, swing the legs around and come up. Yeah. I think we're going to have to repaint this color often. I love it. It's light, though it marks pretty easy. Okay, so we're going to have to swing the legs around. Yeah. Okay, so now here's where we get to honestly assess our necks, because I know a lot of people have neck injuries, myself included in the past. And so when you come to poses where we're stretching at the back of the neck, it's important to be honest about that and to blend that with ahimsa so that you're being honest and compassionate with yourself. So for some people, this might be enough of a stretch for the back of the neck, and if it is, you need to honor that. The next step is just to bend the knees slightly and place the feet flat on the wall. And it's just a slight bend in the knee, because if you bend too much, then you won't have anywhere to go here. And you're going to just keep checking in, but from here you're going to roll up through the spine until the pelvis comes off the ground. Okay. So check in with your neck and see how this feels for you. Yeah. And you can lift your feet up a little bit more as you have if it allows you to come up further to a spot that's comfortable. So for me, this feels good here. This is enough. Now the next step is possibly taking the feet off the wall. But with this, you want to be honest. So many times I see students kicking, and kicking means that you're not ready. But if you can lift one leg off the wall without kicking, then you can do that. And that might be enough too. And then in which case you could just alternate between the legs and stay with one. But if the other leg can come off the wall without kicking, then you can lift it off as well. Okay? Just honor your own expression of shoulder stand and this stretch on the back of the neck. I had this great Phoenix Rising yoga therapy session once, and Phoenix Rising yoga therapy is, you have a yoga therapist taking you through postures, but there's dialogue in it. And we spent a long time here. I talked for a long time here. It's a great pose to dialogue in. Okay, so when that feels like it's enough for you and that's feeling good for me, now you can start to bring your feet back towards the wall, and then you can roll down through the spine, bone by bone by bone. And then just give that a chance to settle a bit. Yeah, Lurleen's just saying she really likes this stretch. Even just doing this, knees bent, feet flat on the wall, and rolling up and down from here, such a great massage for the back. If you can't get in to see your massage therapist, you can just massage your own back this way. Have you ever done that at home? No? It's a great way to massage your back. Doesn't that feel good? Yeah, and you can focus on certain parts too, right? So you can just focus in on one part. Yeah. Okay, we need to move on though. There's much more, so we need to get to it. So bend your knees and roll to your side. Okay, and come back to your mat. So now we stretch at the back of the neck, and our next task is going to be to stretch out the front of the neck. So have you done fish pose before, do you know? Okay, so I'm going to help you with it. I'll demonstrate first, and then I'm going to talk you through it again, and I'll help Lurleen with it. So you can move your mat away from the wall and get ready while I demonstrate. And you're going to rest. You're going to lie back on the ground, and you're going to take your hands like this so that they frame your sacrum at the back. So you just place them underneath your pelvis. Okay. And this is why it is important to work with a teacher. So, because a teacher can really take you into the pose the first time. Because this pose is actually, I don't have too many students that have any issues with it. It's just kind of finding it the first time can be a little challenging. So you're going to press into the forearms. That's going to lift the chest, and you're going to rest on the top of the head. It's a great stretch for the front of the neck. Oh, you got there? Yeah. Okay, let me come and check. Yeah, that looks great. So you guys can see at home that the pelvis stays on the ground. One of the things that I see when students try to come into this pose is they lift the pelvis off the ground. But the chest is lifted. And it should feel good on the neck. Does it feel okay? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then you can tuck your chin and slowly lower yourself down. Great. And then make your way up. We're going to do a squat. If you can do full knee flexion, then come into a full squat. Is that okay for you for your knees, this position? Yeah. If not, you can do it sitting in a chair, okay, what we're doing. This is called Noose pose because I think sometimes we get bound by our own lack of truth, that it keeps us in bondage and it prevents us from freedom. So let's take our hands and we'll walk them over to the left, taking the right arm out to the outside of the left knee. The full version of this pose involves a huge wrap with the arms, but this is probably enough for most people. So Noose pose is about disentangling our consciousness from a false sense of identification. And so when we connect with Satya, we're connecting with our true self. And we're not bound by those false senses of identification. Okay, and then we'll walk over to the other side. Okay, so we're going to finish sitting today. Do I have enough time to do a breath practice? No. Okay, we're done. All right, so I had this great way to end with Kapalabhati breath. So if you do know Kapalabhati breath, it's skull shining breath, and it's a way to clear the mind. And maybe we'll start with that next week so that we get a chance to do it, but maybe you can look it up too. The reason why I chose it is because it kind of clears our mind and our vision of the cobwebs so we can get a sense of who we really are, our true self, our higher self. And I have this great quote that I'll just share with you as a way of ending then. This comes from Elizabeth Lesler's book called Broken Open, and it's a story of a woman sort of finding her truth and finally seeing the truth rather than being wrapped up in her stories or the way she had always looked at the world. So she says, "I felt the hand of God changing the way I thought about everything, as if God was a waitress. I was the wine glass she was drying, holding me by the stem of my heart, turning me around and around, cleansing the film of my vision, so I might see the world as she does." And I just thought that was such a great description of the effect of Kapalabhati. So maybe we'll start with that next week. All right, let's bring our hands to a prayer position at our heart and closing our eyes, bowing to our heart, remembering our truth, that we are perfect and whole and complete, and there is nowhere to get to. We have everything we need within us. Namaste. Thank you for joining us for the 34th episode of Namaste Yoga, and thank you for sharing your truth with me, and thank you for sharing your yoga today. Namaste.